Recently, I've been on sort of a science fiction stint. I just finished playing Nier Automata and immediately started playing Horizon Zero Dawn. And just last week, I finished both Neon Genesis Evangelion and Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, two of the most well-known mecha shows today. And although they were completely different series with wildly varying tones, each of them had two common assertions I could say about them. One, people really love big, impossible robots. I mean, I couldn't go a day without running into one. And two, perhaps more importantly, they were all set in the far future. There were no spaceships or phasers or wormholes or even giant robots here in 2020. And I think that's sort of weird since most of the stuff we've seen in popular older sci-fi series is just stuff we have lying around today. I mean, Iron Man isn't special for having Jarvis. Most of us have a virtual super intelligent assistant around us via Siri or Alexa or Cortana. And a Roomba is just one step away from a Star Wars cleaning droid. And some dude already built a laser gun in his garage like 4 years ago. So why? Why do we keep moving the technological goalpost? Why, whenever we make fiction a reality, we just think of something more absurd and outstanding and impossible to put into our stories? I think the answer can be found in the history of our scientific achievements. I think one of the biggest achievements I was around to witness was Alan Eustace's jump from space in 2014. And I was 9 years old. I was 9 years old at the time, and I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world, jumping from up there. It was actually the end of a series of jumps to test like spacesuits or something. I don't really remember. I was a hyperactive 9-year-old watching the Science Channel. Um, but one of the first ones, Joseph Kittinger said something in the replays of the older ones that I still kind of remember today. I prefaced this quote by saying he was on his final and highest jump, and he realized the pressure seal on his right glove had failed early on, but didn't tell anybody because he wanted to go on with the experiment. But his hand had like expanded to like 3 times the size it was supposed to be, and was completely unusable, which is kind of a problem when you need to open a parachute so you don't fall down from the highest height anybody's ever fell from. And after he started plummeting from like over 100,000 feet in the air, he was waiting to drift over his landing spot, sweating from like the blistering solar radiation on the left side of his face and watching the sweat drift off as a vapor from the right. He kind of mused to the rest of us down below. He said, "There's a hostile sky above me. Man will never conquer space. He may live in it, but he will never conquer it. The sky above is void and very black and very hostile." And that moment, to him, the lights in the sky weren't stars, but they were enemies. And I don't know if he meant that as a challenge to the rest of humanity, but we've obviously taken it that way. There's this sort of theory observation thing called Moore's Law, and it states that every 2 years, the amount of transistors on a microchip that can fit on a microchip double. And that leads to basically greater power density, and ultimately we're able to achieve more in terms of technology. And so Kittinger's jump was in 1960, and in 1962 we had the first orbital solar observatory. 2 years after that, we got the first multi-person crew into orbit. 2 years, first impact onto another planet. 2 years, the first trans-Earth injection, and 1 year, we got the first man on the moon. And fast forward a bunch of years after that, and we got plans to go to Mars and robots on random asteroids and privately owned reusable rockets and all sorts of stuff. And why did we do that? Well, it was to explore. You notice that in most of the older sci-fi shows, aliens came from the moon, unlike now. It was always, enigmatic men from the moon, aliens from like the other dark side. But now that we've been to the moon and we've seen that there is not really much up there, so now all our aliens come from like deep space or other dimensions or whatever. And humanity has kind of been crafting mysteries from the darkness beyond what we've explored forever. And we're willing to pull things that we once thought were bound tightly to the realm of fiction into reality just to see if our stories are true or not. These rockets, these probes, these observatories are all testaments to our ingenuity and our desire to discover if the fantastical really exists out there. The Apollo 11 is no different from Starship Enterprise or the Millennium Falcon and its goals of carrying humanity around space to see what we could find. When Mr. Kittinger first said what he said 8 decades ago, I'm sure space was an unreachable height for humanity. But now, due to the imagination and the drive to explore, the lights in the sky aren't unknowable enemies, but stars. They're stars that we intend to reach beyond, out to the furthest expanses of the universe to see whatever is out there. Because because that's where we set our sights through the lens of science fiction.